Okay.
Okay, so here we go. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Fear. I'm one of the advisors at the Brink SBDC through the University of San Diego. It's a pleasure to be here today with Jessica Bell. She is the founder and CEO of reVessel, and I can't wait for her to share her story, some great lessons learned and experiences, and how she's kind of encountered 2020 and moving into 2021, as well as her experience with the Brink. So thanks for being here, Jessica. Tell us about reVessel.
Thank you so much for having me. Well, I'm excited to share a little bit about what we've been doing over the last year and a half. It's been a journey. So reVessel is first a mission-driven company. We're a consumer goods brand. We exist in the world to create a healthier world for future generations. What we do at our company is we reimagine how to make it easier for people to live consciously in a world that is full of toxins and food that is often not leading to health, but leading to disease. So we wanted to create a better way, an easier way for people to carry food that really fueled health, and do it in a safe, sustainable, and sophisticated way. So we designed that foodware for conscious people to efficiently prep and cook and store and pack food, and it's really in one integrated system, and really looking at solving the most perplexing food storage issues. And I think if we think about, clunky Tupperware cabinets and cracks and breaks, I mean, that from a sustainability perspective, we want to eliminate that so people aren't throwing those containers away. We want to create things that are designed for life, not designed for obsolescence. And then we ultimately want to create things that are safe for people to use, and really be as transparent as possible in, what materials are highest and best for that application. So I think that, what we're most known for is really packing a lot of function and features into a system. We have our adventure kit, which is ultimately foodware, bakeware, takeware. It's really such a complex system that transforms how you think about carrying food. It's a leak-proof lunchbox, but it can also be used, for prepping meals on the weekends and carrying picnics and storing food in the fridge and freezer. So such dynamic products. So my journey, Lauren, I'm going to share a little bit about the journey and how it came to be, just because I think that that's so important for an entrepreneur to really recognize that, we're not sitting around going, what can I do for a business? This was a convergence of problems and issues and trauma and difficulty that was like, when I looked in the mirror, I was like, oh my gosh, this needs to be solved. And that's how that this is the problem for you to solve. So when I was young, I was a high level athlete. I was training 40 hours a week in the gym. I wasn't really fueling my body the way that it should be. A lot of McDonald's, a lot of Denny's, a lot of quick and convenient things, also known as the standard American diet now, which leads to chronic disease, high rates of chronic disease in adults, and those rates are skyrocketing in children. So in my 30s, after my second child, I was diagnosed with multiple chronic diseases, systemic inflammation, lots of problems. I didn't really recognize myself anymore. And that became very challenging because I always define myself as somebody who really, identifies with health, leaving behind a better place for my kids and adventure, and really kind of pursuing passion and purpose. And I was disconnected with all of those. And so, I really looked at what were the fundamental issues. I consider myself a systemic thinker. So when I'm like, this leads to this, but didn't start with, oh, just one day I woke up and had a chronic disease. It was, oh my gosh, it started at a very early age.
To unwind all that, right?
Totally. A lot of unpacking, a lot of asking questions and going, where did that opinion start? So a lot of self-awareness, right? And so I think entrepreneurs may come to this point where they're like, oh, wow, philosophy and self-exploration is really the journey, right, to leadership. So I certainly experienced that. I did a lot of research, spent many years looking at food systems, looking at how to do both, live, healthy, and realize that living healthy and living environmentally friendly didn't often go hand in hand. So I started preparing a lot of my own meals. I didn't have a great way to carry them. I just carried them in glass because a lot of the issue was the toxic burden that my body had. So to eliminate that, I wanted to eliminate the exposures that I had from the environmental toxins. A lot of that came from either the food itself or what the food came into contact that ended up migrating into it.
It's something
So
I learned from you, Jessica. I mean, plastic is pretty dangerous. Can you just
yeah.
tell us exactly, for those of you who maybe have been pretty used to carrying your food in plastic containers, what's the danger in doing that, Jess?
Well, I mean, we think of plastic as just a hard substance that we put our food into, and you don't think of there being an interaction, but ultimately, in any environment, there's going to be some sort of migration of chemicals and leaching of those chemicals. If you're able to stain the plastic is then breaking down, photodegrading. It degrades in light and heat and cold environments, and ultimately those chemicals that make up plastic, plasticizers, BPA is often one that we hear about, but there's a lot of other ones, up to 12,000, well, I should say more than 12,000 chemicals that have been kind of come together, and scientists are really worried that they're having a huge impact, but they just haven't been studied enough. So there's more studies that are being called on by scientists to really understand, but we know that they contribute to obesity, they contribute to hormones not developing properly or mimicking of hormones, leading to cancers and infertility. I mentioned obesity. So you think about what happens in society and what we're facing. We're facing high rates of obesity. We're facing high rates of infertility and cancers and all those things. And this is just one of the ways that we're exposed to it.
Well,
So
very deep why that you have as far as trying to change that and, create some cultural change as well as, just bringing a product to market that could shift us. It's deeper than that. It sounds like for you, much deeper.
it's super deep, and it's really hard to explain all of the drivers of why we design a certain way, how we, select materials, both again for environment and for humans. They're interconnected. And so going back to that kind of interconnectedness, I recognize that in order for me to have healthy food, I couldn't go and outsource it somewhere else. I couldn't order it from an online grocery store and expect that it wasn't going to come in sort of, some sort of packaging, some sort of plastic that was ultimately going to create more waste. So realizing that healthy people and healthy planet kind of go hand in hand. So how can we, really look at both? So two sort of things happened simultaneously. I was taking my food wherever I went, carrying it in glass. I was also asked by many neighbors to start crafting menus and creating meals for their families, which meant that food was also going to be transported away from the home. So it was prepared at home and then transported. And after doing it for 6 months, I came to a point where I was just like, it's not scalable. There's no good way to transport the food. And I paused, I dug my heels in and really said, this is the biggest problem. I am carrying glass. It's heavy, it's clunky, it's fragile. I'm not going to use plastic. There's no better option right now. I looked around. And so that was really where we're like, oh shoot, we've got to do it. And so that's when we went ahead and started looking at how do we move forward and how do we create a way for people to carry food away from the home, but also, again, not having to dirty 20 dishes to be able to do it. How can we use the same containers to prep and cook that we then package and transport? So that's kind of the backstory. I mean, there's so many more layers to it, but
There are, and I have to say, I have been a customer, a reVessel customer, owning actually 2 adventure kits, and I took them on the road for our 3-month journey into nature. And I have 2 boys that were using this product every single day. And when we got home, we actually took all of the plastic that we had and got rid of it in our house. And now, it's become part of our life too. And so I think it's not just, oh, this is some really cool foodware, but it actually changes my feeling of health for my family. And I feel like that's a big intention that you had, was to say, how can I make people's lives healthier in the process of creating something that's also very sustainable for our earth?
Yeah. The cool part is we can meet people wherever they're at. You know, they want to pack healthier meals for work. Great. We can help with that. They also want to start cooking more at home. We can certainly help with that. They want to get their kitchen organized and not have the clutter. We can certainly help with that. You know, you want to
Yeah.
go Marie Kondo your kitchen? We can certainly help.
Nice, and it stacks so nicely. It's
Right.
perfect. My drawer, no more of those clunky plastic Tupperware things everywhere. So tell us about, I know you had a very successful Kickstarter campaign. Tell us what that was like, and how it kind of helped your business. Tell us the details.
Sure. Kickstarter was a huge undertaking, I must say. We launched our Kickstarter campaign. It was like it's like I'm sure a lot of women can relate to this. You know, you're 9 months pregnant, so why don't you go ahead and let's move houses right now? This seems like a good time. So we were literally birthing our first product, the flagship adventure kit, 13-piece system. You know, connecting with customers, selling the product, and then started shipping our first batch of products that came in. And we simultaneously were running a 45-day Kickstarter campaign. So two things happening simultaneously. It was insane, but it was a way to breathe new life into our company. So there were a lot of good things, there were a lot of lessons, and then just some things that were really challenging. I'll start with the good because that's always the fun stuff. The obvious is that it was funding for our company. It was a way for us to go, do people really like what we are offering? And, you see what happens really quickly, like either yes or no. And we saw that, I mean, we hit some goals really quickly. We exceeded our campaign goal by over 1,000%. We raised over $225,000 in this first campaign, which was super exciting. So, validated the products that we were offering on on a platform where there's early adopters that want to see what's coming out of the pike, what's coming out of this, out of the channel. And just validating what we were doing, it was really exciting to fuel us in 2020 to get that year started.
Tell us about the challenges then.
Well, the other thing is we went from being a small San Diego company with little tentacles here and there, maybe shipping to New York or Texas, but all of a sudden we were now shipping out to 35 countries after our campaign. So it really put us on a global scale, getting new eyes on our company and new markets on the radar, which was great. Lessons, hard stuff. So, we are a company that's built on the tenets of conscious capitalism. And it's really something that I jumped into, knowing that we were going to build a conscious company, knowing that we weren't there, we hadn't actualized, but we were going to start to learn how to operationalize each of the tenets of conscious capitalism. One of the things that we learned was, you hire a contractor, you hire a partner to achieve certain objectives, and the way that things are communicated may not, you're wrapping your head around a lot of things, and you have somebody that you're speaking to, but there are also people that are, kind of down the chain that are actually the ones doing the work. And some of our values, some of the key objectives of the project didn't get communicated or relayed until really far down into it's almost launch time. And how are we still asking these types of questions? And it really turned kind of the mirror back on us to go, what did we do wrong here? Who did we not have at the table that needed to be at the table? So it really allowed us to look at our stakeholder integration and how we brought the right people into the conversation, made sure that they were there, make sure that they understood where we wanted to go with this campaign. And I think that it probably had an impact on the end result, on the numbers. But it's too difficult to actually translate that into real impact. We also launched a lot of new products. Some people go and they launch a book or a new, a new, tchotchke or trinket or something like that. And we launched a new 11-piece product in 3 new colors, silicone inserts, bamboo inserts, new colors in the adventure kit. And it was a lot of SKUs. It was a really high investment up front. So we looked back and we're like, that was aggressive. And, and looking back, you're like, that was aggressive, already. And then you look at what 2021 presented, or I'm sorry, 2020 presented. And then, you're like, wow, we've got a lot of work to do. So we went into 2020 with a lot of new customers. They're called backers on the platform. And they're not, I mean, they are customers, right? They're going to be users of our product and evangelists, hopefully. We were very intentional about communicating. And the biggest challenge was we would use the platform, the Kickstarter platform, to post updates regularly. I mean, obviously March and April were like, we can't even talk to our suppliers. That we cannot even, we have an overseas supply chain. We could not even be in contact with them because they weren't even in their offices. So we had to go back to our values and really look at which of those values were going to show up. And transparency was a big one. The funding aspect was a big one, letting our customers know that we have this inkling, something's going on. We don't know what it is just yet. We don't know how it's going to impact our supply chain. And so the communication that we would put out there, we'd invest a lot of time and energy into. And then 2 months down the road, we'd, get an email through the platform or through, our customer service channels asking for a status update. And we'd get, that would happen regularly. And so we just have to redirect people or answer their question and let them know that there's this platform that, that you back to the campaign. And this is the platform that we're using for communication. So that was one that was, just ongoing, time consuming. And I can tell you that once we ship, which we're getting very, very, very close. We've had some really positive things happen in the last couple of weeks. Right now it's Lunar New Year. So actually Lunar New Year is coming up. So factories will be closed. And so we'll have a temporary kind of, production hiatus until factories come back online. But as soon as that comes back, we're going to be in full production and ready to ship out to thousands of new customers, which is super exciting.
Around the world too.
Yeah.
That's amazing and exciting. But I'm sure there's definitely lessons, and thanks for sharing those. If an entrepreneur asked you what's kind of the biggest takeaway or the biggest thing to watch out for when starting a Kickstarter campaign, what would you tell them?
Oh my gosh. Well, there's so many phases of the campaign. There's the pre-campaign, there's the during the campaign, and then there's the after campaign. I think there's so many circumstances that we've had kind of facing us and our campaign that are probably going to be unique. So I'm going to kind of try to eliminate some variables, but I think it's really be intentional about what you're there for. Are you there to make a ton of money? Are you there to get market validation? And then put the time in advance, test it. And we had the support to do that, indicating that it was going to be a successful campaign. We didn't know if it was going to be $1 million successful campaign or $100,000 successful campaign. Kind of a reflective person, I would have liked to see some other things happen, but it's just more fuel for the next campaign should we move forward with one.
That's great, thanks. So 2020, you did a lot of things to pivot your business. You obviously had to really think through your supply chain and how you'd make that work. But one of the things that you've done connected to the community has been partnering with area restaurants. And these restaurants are all very focused on sustainability and seem to have the same mission and values that you do. Can you tell us more about that, and maybe a little bit of explanation to how that's working for you, and just what as you're building up your business and have a lot of different priorities, how does that fit in?
Yeah, it was definitely kind of a great opportunity for us to go, okay, we can't do what we thought we were going to do. And we didn't know how long we weren't going to be able to do what we thought we were going to be able to do. So we chose to do something that we could do. So it kind of took the focus off of trying to be resistant and trying to force something and look for something positive. So 2020, we had trade shows and conferences and hundreds of thousands of people that we were supposed to be in contact with for brand awareness and new customer acquisition. And those disappeared, which was heartbreaking because we love sharing what we're doing in front of people and them getting it, like being able to communicate something brand new to somebody and doing it in person is very different than them seeing an ad or seeing, so it turned our attention to what we knew, which was, food systems and, our values. We were really connected to what our mission is and what our purpose is. And so it went back to, how can we uplift our community? How can we find areas of opportunity? I'll try to shorten it up a little bit. We fundraised so that restaurants could have new revenue sources. And we specifically targeted restaurants that were already sourcing locally. So then that amplified the impact to local farms in the area. And ultimately sourcing from those local farms and feeding people, high quality, responsibly sourced food ultimately, means healthier people. So we looked at this as an opportunity to find those issues. And the big problem was that, the restrictions on restaurants were huge. They had to shift so many different times and then shifting to 100% disposable packaging for takeout and curbside pickup. And remember in the early days, it was called curbside pickup. You'd drive up and you'd see all these chefs outside dancing with their with their bags of disposable food containers. So it was kind of like, all right, this is where we can start to have an impact. So these restaurants, instead of packaging up these meals in disposable containers, we would then supply them. We had inventory on hand, and we chose to use that inventory to go to frontline workers. So we actually donated a large portion of these containers. We distributed over 200 meals across Scripps and UCSD throughout San Diego County, and 5 different restaurant partners involved that were super stoked, enthusiastic about the campaign, about the initiative. And it was just right timing. It was right timing to uproot old and try something new. Everybody was doing new. So, nobody was questioning like, why are you trying something new now? So I think that the positive thing that happened is we learned a lot. We were able to, find other ways to expose our brand and the good work that we were doing in the community, give these, frontline workers that were doing overtime in so many ways, a really healthy meal. And then ultimately we could learn a little bit more about the system and plant those seeds. So that ended up resulting in a partnership that we're super excited about with a North County restaurant called The Plot. And I think that's just the beginning for us and for them as well. Here in the community as a, San Diego based company, how can we better serve our local restaurants and chefs who are, on razor thin margins? And how can we, create a model for them that's going to be workable, that's going to help increase margins, that's going to help, better align with their values to reduce waste. So it's just been really exciting.
That's awesome, Jess. Yeah, very exciting to see. And you mentioned The Plot is the restaurant that you've kind of formalized a partnership with.
Yeah, and this is a brand new restaurant. They just celebrated their first year today. So, brand new, but they've already
to do that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Them, what a model of resilience, and those entrepreneurs listening that are focused on how do we best pivot. What a great lesson. So thank you.
And we didn't have the answers either. We didn't know what was going to happen. We set some pretty big goals. We had to modify them slightly, but it was less about hitting revenue targets, more about surviving and lifting up others during this time.
That's great. So I know you've been working with the Brink for the last couple of years. I'd love to hear a little bit about how the Brink SBDC has helped you in your business.
Yeah, there are so many things that I could share here to make this a very long story, but the way I view it is more like a centralized hub. When I have a problem, there is, if I don't know where to turn, the Brink is usually the place that I go. So my direct mentor, who is, somebody that's trusted, that I've gotten to know over time, is usually that person that is going to either link me up with a specialist. If they're not the right person, they're going to link me up with somebody within the Brink, or externally. And what we've seen is that we've either found ways to save money, or we found ways to generate new revenue. So I want to give a couple of specific examples. So for our Kickstarter campaign, before we even knew how to take that first step, we reached out to our mentor, who connected us with some entrepreneurs who had already done a Kickstarter campaign. And from there, we started learning. So it was this idea that one thing sort of leads to another. We connected with them. They gave us some new crumbs to kind of, go and pick up. And so we became a little bit wiser, not full, again, fully ready for what we were about to embark on, but a little bit more, I guess a little bit less directionally challenged. The other thing is just the network itself. There's so much wisdom across the network, and the amazing people that are, called to be Brink advisors are, folks that we are able to call on just with, one connection. And all of a sudden we have access to advisors in finance, and advisors in supply chain, or advisors, across the board marketing. So we've really taken those opportunities and embraced them as much as possible. And then, external referrals to other organizations that are looking to uplift startups and manufacturing companies, and trade groups that are specific to our field. So one example would be CMTC, California Manufacturing Trade organization, that has, been able to support us in other ways, like, helping to optimize our supply chain, or, find resources to other suppliers, so that we have, backups, and, can improve our branding. And it's been incredible. It's been really, truly incredible.
I appreciate your feedback, and just thrilled to support you and reVessel. I'm wondering, if someone was maybe hesitant to sign up for SBDC services, what would you tell them?
Ooh. There are really two things. And I think that the entrepreneur is kind of like the lone wolf. It's the hunter. They're out there doing their thing. And, things get lonely from time to time, or it can be very isolating, and especially in times like this. So it's nice to have somebody that already knows what you're experiencing, that is, again, trusted advisor, and is there to help, when times are good, and when times are difficult as well. So we've obviously experienced a lot of adversity. And so those are the times where it's like, I just need to reach out, and I just need to go, these are the problems that I'm facing, or I don't know what my problems are. Can you help me figure that out? The other thing is this is kind of something entrepreneurs need to have, and it's the ability to resource up. And that's, not something that needs to be expensive. Resourcing up sounds expensive, but resourcing up, there's a lot of complementary free resources that are not often taken advantage of. And it can be a two-way street also. It can be, providing something in return. But I think that term resource up, this is an opportunity, a free resource to make new connections and build your business in a resilient way.
Well, thank you, Jessica. If folks want to reach out to you, if we have entrepreneurs or people interested in reVessel, what's the best way to connect with you?
Well, reVessel.com is a great way. We've got links to contact us and submit information. We're on Instagram at reVessel USA. And then, our website would be probably the best way to learn more about us.
Thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Same to you.
I'll turn recording off.